We're recording.
Thank you, Dana. All right. It is, and I'm just double checking. All right. It is May 12th, Tuesday, May 12th, 2026, 6:30 p.m. And I'm going to call the meeting of the Governance, Organization, and Legislation Committee to order. I will begin by calling on each member to make sure that they can hear and we can hear them. Lynn Griesmer,
Present.
Counselor Ryan,
I'm present.
Counselor Lord,
Present.
and we will keep an eye out for Counselor Cano Martin. I don't believe she said she would miss tonight, so she should be here.
Oh, here she is.
Oh,
She's in
perfect.
the audience.
Excellent. I'm just gonna give her a minute. All right. Hello, Counselor Kenna Martin. It's throwing me off because I can where your background threw me off for a minute because I thought you were looking up downtown and like could my office would have been in the background. Anyway, sorry, I just had a whole head trip there. All right, everybody. So it is GOL time again. Thoughts and prayers to those of us who already have had finance today. We're going to start in with our public comment. We do have some members of the public. If you are in the public and would like to make a comment, you can go ahead and raise your hand on Zoom. You'll have up to 3 minutes to make your comment, and we will not respond to public comments made. So I'll give you a moment to decide whether or not you'd like to make public comment tonight. Okay. All right, let's move on to the first item on our agenda, which is the human rights bylaw. So as a reminder, in the last meeting, we voted the charge for the Human Rights Commission. Sorry, I put a cough drop in my mouth and that was a mistake. And this meeting, we now need to decide what to do with the existing bylaw so that we're not duplicating efforts or possibly contradicting ourselves. I will pull up the bylaw on the screen. Athena, thank you so much for helping me out with that. And here we go. All right. Everybody can look at this. Okay. Lynn, you're ready to start us off? You're muted. You're muted.
Okay, thank you. What you're looking at is I took the existing bylaw, and so you see more red than you see anything else, and I kept two sections of it. One section I substituted directly from the language from the charge for the committee and used all of the language that we had already reviewed in terms of what kind of rights we're protecting. And the second thing was to basically just say we would have a human rights commission. That was it. Don't get into anything else. Don't get into, um, you know, purpose or anything else. Just that's it. And my only reason for wanting to do this is because I feel like it's important for the town to still have a bylaw about human rights, but we have really um, taken everything else that was in the bylaw plus and we've put it into the charge. And so nothing else needs to be there. And so this would be a motion to rescind and replace.
Mm-hmm. Any comments about this, Counselor Kenna Martin?
Yeah, I had looked into this a little bit. I think I sent something at least to you, Anna, about the reason that towns codify this in a bylaw. It seems like it's fairly common for the human rights stuff to be in a bylaw because that way there's a guarantee that it will survive beyond, different administrations or things, people who may think differently, like at least it's always going to be there. So I definitely think we should keep it, and I would support this.
Counselor Ryan?
Well, I guess I'm still where I was last time. I felt that this clarified things by just creating a charge. Um, I believe in the current version or motion, it still lists the number of members.
Yes.
And that would again seem to me to be a mistake. Well, not a mistake. I just really struggle to see why this is here. And I hear Councilor Kenna Martin's point. I don't share that fear. I don't think that human rights are going to disappear from the town of Amherst view of the world. I felt that we have. I don't understand why this is. It's not a big deal. It's a very short bylaw. That's, I guess, in its defense. Um, I think what matters is that there is a Human Rights Commission and that it has a clear and articulated charge with, which I think we have crafted and hopefully the council will approve. Um, I just don't see the point of this, but that's, yeah.
So I'm raising my hand here. I think that I do have a proposed edit to this, Lynn, if you'll consider it. And I think that
Absolutely.
I mean, and I apologize for not reaching out to you about it beforehand. Again, today's been a weird time has been doing weird things today. So, I don't mind having especially this portion in the bylaws, just kind of as an overarching statement. Why not say it in multiple places? This first paragraph, sorry.
Mhm. Right.
I'm curious if we shifted this second edition to just be, there shall be a Human Rights Commission. I don't think we need to say the commission. And then we say whose work is governed by their approved charge. I think that I'm wondering if we could make it even broader so that we're not even specifying number of members or term length.
I think that's perfect.
Is that because then we're kind of getting
Yeah.
to we don't need to change two things if something shifts, and we are we're kind of keeping in there because I agree, Councilor Kenna Martin, with what your research showed. I found the same thing, that there often is a reference to it in a lot of city bylaws. So I think my proposed, I'll turn on track changes. There shall be a Human Rights Commission. Oops,
I like that. That's the only reason I'm raising my hand.
govern, well, if I can spell it right, governed by their approved charge. To uphold, I mean, we could say like to uphold human rights, or we could just leave it as is.
By their
Okay.
charge.
Okay. So, all right, you know what I mean. I'm gonna switch to not reviewing, and that way we can look at this for its final version. So if the motion would be, oh, my report, hang on. To recommend, hang on, I gotta pull my report over so I can so you all can judge it as I'm writing. And Councilor Kings. So the first motion is to recommend rescission. Help me. Yeah, and replacement of, which number is it?
It's 3 point something. I'd have to go look.
Maybe I just had it recently. Hey, Poppy, hang on, my dog is in the trash can. One moment, please. So sorry, her entire body was fully trying to get my lunch. Okay, so
It's bylaw 3.3.
thank you. 3.3.
Human Rights and Human Rights Commission is the name of the bylaw.
Do we need to specify in the motion what we are replacing it with by saying like with the text below?
Your GOL motion can be a little bit less delicate than the council motion. The council motion would be
exactly.
more specific, like to rescind the bylaw 3.3 Human Rights and Human Rights Commission and replace it with the following, and then you would have the text. But for this motion, you can just say in the document shown or in the document presented or whatever.
Um, okay. So it will look like this.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. I have made that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to move to the vote. Counselor Kendall Martin,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Nay.
Counselor Lord.
Aye.
I am an aye. Lynn.
Aye.
All right, that is 4 in favor, 1 opposed, no abstentions. The motion passes. Okay. Moving on our agenda is
Just a quick point of order. It might be helpful for the GOL report to give a little bit of explanation about why Councilor Ryan chose to vote against this. I'm
Yeah.
sure the council will want to know that. So just an opportunity for Councilor Ryan to share that for the report.
Counselor Ryan, could you, I think I do have an understanding, but would you like to say it in your own words for the report so I can capture it?
I don't think it's necessary.
The replacement specifically, right? You supported the rescission, not the replacement.
Correct.
I will add more to this, but that's just my making sure I've got that part done. Okay. We are going to move on to, sorry, I just gotta create a new blank one here so I don't have space. Okay. We are going to move on to the Resident Oversight Board discussion. So as a reminder, we were looking at this, in the last meeting, and Athena had sent a video to the last, to the meeting discussion from the last time this was discussed at the council. And I apologize, I forgot to move things from the last packet to this packet. I will do that so that you can find it all in one place, but we had the memo from the town manager regarding the Resident Oversight Board. Our homework was to go home and get a clear grasp on the two options and kind of discuss which option. Today we're discussing which option we believe the town council should pursue, that we should recommend to the town council. I want to start off with kind of any general thoughts that folks had after viewing the meeting or reading up on it. And kind of initial whims or leanings as we go into the discussion. Anyone? This bodes well. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Kendall Martin.
Yeah, I mean, I did go over the meeting and I went over the memo. And I would be leaning towards the investigatory model. Sorry, I knew I was going to say that wrong. And that really is based on the recommendations of the CSSJC, and the intentions of the original work of the Community Safety Working Group.
Can you could you explain? Oh, I'm sorry. We'll go to Councilor Ryan, then I'll come back and ask clarifying questions. Councilor Ryan.
So I did do my homework, and I was reminded, I was actually present, and it all came flooding back to me. It was a very impressive presentation. Both consultants were very thoughtful. There were excellent questions asked. I took lots of notes. And as I listened, one thing that came across, I think, the strongest to me, something that one of the consultants said during the course of their remarks, was that if building trust is your goal, that is better achieved through a review model than by an investigatory one. So I was struck by that. Most of the language of the presentation and discussion seemed to be built around dialogue and trust and communication and all those good things. And so that had an impact on me in terms of what I think this is trying to accomplish. There were a number of other issues that were brought up, and maybe we'll discuss them this evening as we go through this, in terms of concerns that people might have, in terms of the expense, in terms of the complexity, in terms of the legal complications that an investigatory model creates. Complications also in terms of collective bargaining. Some of that's in the legal memo. But for me, I think the real thing was that if the goal is really to build trust, the review approach is probably the better way to go. I think it was also pointed out that in the Commonwealth, there are only 3 communities that have a body like this. They're significantly larger than Amherst. And all 3 have the review format. So that's sort of my takeaway from listening to that, beyond just that it actually was a very good discussion, I thought.
Councilor Martin, did you have anything else to add here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to share some of the themes of the letter from the CSSJC. I mean, I think that for similar to what Councilor Ryan said, I think that in terms of like restoring trust with the BIPOC community, the investigatory model was the one that was favored. And, you know, they have cited that there have been, you know, multiple studies over the past 5 or 6 years that have shown that people in our community are concerned about over-policing, fear, and trust between the BIPOC community members and the APD, and also that that it would be really important that that folks that would be represented on this ROB, who are members of the BIPOC community, would have that ability to investigate and would have those tools at their disposal. If they don't have those tools, then it's really just, you know, it's a very similar scenario to what we have already, which is that, you know, the police carry out their investigation and then, you know, we either, you know, accept or don't, but, you know, we don't have the tools to do that ourselves and to hear from the community. So, you know, that's my reasons for supporting the investigatory model. And I believe in the work that was done by both the CSWG and the CSSJC and the research that has been done over time on this. So that's my reasoning.
So before I do want to hear from Councilor Lord and Lynn, I just wanted to, I'm feeling, again, I felt this way last week. I thought I would come around after doing my homework. I'm trying to structure our discussion, and part of me is wondering almost, and I'm running the risk of bringing my professional self to the table a little bit painfully right now. I almost am wondering if we should kind of do basically a SWOT analysis of each style. A SWOT analysis is looking at the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and I'll call it the risks of each version, so that we kind of can do a clear comparison for ourselves. If people are feeling like they are set and have an answer right now, maybe we don't need to do this. But I think right now people are kind of very helpfully throwing out their initial thoughts, and I'm trying to organize them in one place for our discussion. Is that something that folks would benefit from, or is there something else that we need in order to be able to make an informed decision so that we're looking at everything in the same place? I'll let you think about that while I go to Councilor Lord and Lynn, and maybe it's just something that I keep for my own notes, and that's fine. Councilor Lord?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So just to lift up where I'm leaning, I'm willing to do a SWOT analysis, but I'm heavily
You don't
leaning
have to.
to the Resident Oversight Board. Duh. Okay, this is all about the Resident Oversight Board, but it's to have it's been a long week. It is
You're
Tuesday.
fine.
Okay.
Don't worry.
Investigatory power, because accountability, like without the ability to independently examine facts, feels, I don't want to say performative, but part of what I hear from residents and others that it, yeah. So I'm thinking that if the board can review information not filtered through the police department itself, it can't fully serve. I mean, yeah. If it's only reviewing the information and not having an investigative, I had this really ready to see, and I'm even able to read it and I can't do it. Okay, so I'm thinking the investigatory authority is what like can transform oversight, and I also think it would build trust because we're working together. Like police do an amazing job, or this and that, and they can stand by being investigated by us. And if we catch something, then I would want to learn. And I'm really saying this like not well. And I have written something out and I just can't read it, but I would love to share it if people want to know more of my thoughts. I'm sorry I'm getting so tongue-tied, but yeah, I'm leaning towards, or I'm not leaning towards, I am in favor of the investigatory model. And I have a lot of arguments as to why that I can't articulate fully right now. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're happy to hear all of those uh, as you feel you want to share them. Lynn?
I think if you want to do a SWOT analysis, that would be fine. I think it's something that I do think this is something that's going to end up at the council in a larger discussion. So the fact that it's very clear that we do not have a unanimous vote already, means that we probably need to prepare how we're going to take this to the council. I have my own personal feelings, but I'm willing to go through a SWOT analysis.
All right. Just because I think it's going to help focus our discussion a little bit, I hope folks will bear with me here. I tried to take some notes. Councilor Ryan, if you've got another plan, I'm so happy to hear it. But I think we need to be able to kind of get everything out there. So let's first talk about the review model. What do folks believe and even if this isn't your preferred method, let's try to kind of, for the moment, get as many as we can out on paper, and we'll do this. I'm going to ask this of everyone for both models. So even if you prefer the investigatory model, let's think about what people would consider the strengths of the review model and vice versa. So starting with strengths of the review model, what do folks have in this area? And feel free to kind of shout them out, and if it gets unruly, we'll go back to hands, but for right now.
I think it's consistent with what other towns in Massachusetts have already done, and we can learn from them. I also think that it is a solid first step that, in many ways, just leave it as a solid first step. That's it.
Okay. Councilor Cannon Martin?
Can I just ask a clarifying question?
Yep.
Um, Other towns in Massachusetts have also done investigatory, correct? Like we've had experiences with both.
Not that we're aware of.
There are only three in the Commonwealth that were referenced in the presentation: Cambridge, Boston, and Springfield.
And those are all
Review model.
okay.
The examples of investigatory models came from one with Ithaca, New York, which in size is, roughly it's a college town. And so that would be a possible parallel, but it's in New York State. It's also in a larger metropolitan area of 100,000 people. So again, it's a much more, in total population, much larger, but this city itself is, I think, about 30,000. And it has an investigatory model. And one of the consultants, I think it was Rabbi Kolodny, stated that she had had a conversation with the chair of that body in Ithaca.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just have to, I'm sorry, I'll have to relook at this again because I see them listed, but I didn't see what the model was.
Yeah, there, and for anyone looking there, it's at the bottom of that first, there's a links at the bottom of the first page to them that hopefully, I think, yeah, they lead to more information about that.
Yeah.
about each one. Oh, sorry.
So they do lead to it, but they don't say what model they are. So I was
You
just,
have to click through to the, like in Cambridge, you have to click through to the bylaw from their website. It's definitely you have, to dig a little bit, but I'm happy to, I just pulled it up for Cambridge, at least for Cambridge, to just look at really quickly.
well, I don't want to spend all our time. I can definitely do this offline. I just was.
Okay, no worries. All right, so any other strengths and these can be strengths that the investigatory model also has. If anyone has anything else for the review model.
Well, I think, as I've said at the beginning, this model is, first of all, less expensive. It requires far less training. It does not have as many, may have very few legal complications. If you read the legal memo, you could see that there were real concerns about the investigatory model in terms of just just the whole issue of employment law, etc. It's extremely complicated and fraught matter. So complexity, expense, training. You're going to have either people on staff, which we don't have, who could conduct a sufficiently appropriate investigation. You could try and train some members of the ROB, but that would be time consuming and expensive, or you could have people on retainer. So it seems like an extraordinarily complicated, well, again, we're focusing on the so let's just stay with that. It's simpler, less expensive, has less complications. Would be my first thought as some of its strengths. And as I said, I guess from the start, I think it takes the approach, a more collaborative approach, from the start, rather than the investigatory model, which has a more of an adversarial aspect to it.
Okay. What about strengths of the investigatory model? I was trying to capture some notes in earlier discussion. We had one of the strengths was that it was favored by the SJC for potential to build trust in the community. Other strengths of the investigatory model.
So sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, my dog is being really annoying.
Something's in the air today with the dogs.
Yeah, I know. So I'm looking at this memo again, and I think that another another strength of this, besides being, something that is favored by the community and the folks who historically have been working on this issue. I think also, like, it's important that, in this model that, that people can be empowered in a way to have, access to, this training and this information and these skills. And more, I think I would say more, ownership um, of the process, because we have to remember not every process is, going to be like, hey, we think the police did something wrong. Sometimes it might be like, hey, we look at the facts and, the police didn't do anything wrong. But how do we know that if we don't have the power to actually use these tools, right, and look into it ourselves? So I think the ownership and the buy-in of the folks that participate in this and the communities they come from is really important. And I think that was the reason that, this was created.
Thank you. Counselor Lord?
Yes, thank you. I wanted to say that an investigatory model doesn't have to be adversary. The police investigate all the time. Yesterday in Vermont, a man just dropped dead in the parking lot, and there was a lot of police, and they were just investigating, so it wasn't like they just wanted to find out what happened to him. So I think it's the way we approach the investigation. So I just wanted to push back a little that maybe it's a little, could be appeared to be more adversarial than the review, but I don't think we need to have that mindset. We can go in, I'm thinking like, I don't know, restorative circles, just so I want to push back that investigatory automatically means adversarial. I think it will build public trust and encourage accountability with more than just a review. I also think it helps like see any systemic issues or patterns differently if you can get in there. And you're right. So it will depend, not like on who's on the board, but like, yeah, it would be a well-trained person who is actually working to with and for and all of the community, not against the police. So I just think, yeah. So I think a strength was what I say that I love myself. Build public trust, accountability, transparency, and I think it can be a relationship that's really powerful and meaningful for the community, not against. Resident Board isn't against the police, it's with in favor of supporting best practices and catching things that they might not catch. All right, that's it for now. Thanks.
Thank you. I wanted to clarify, I'm going to just pull over something because I think one of the things that I had been misremembering until I reread was that the investigatory model is still, so the ROB conducts the investigations by gathering evidence and conducting interviews, but the interviews, oh no, it can be the ROB members. So I'm curious, I think if we were to, so I'm thinking about some of the concerns that folks have had, is this kind of I'm probably going to frame this poorly, but like the feeling of someone who doesn't understand the role of the police officer now judging that role. And I know that that is a fraught statement because there are 10,000 directions you can go in from that. But I'm curious if that concern would, if it would be improved or feel better for the folks who are concerned about the investigatory model if the interviews were only conducted by trained investigators or town staff. Like, I'm curious if there's a way to kind of try to bridge this a little. Does it have to be the option of the ROB members conducting conducting the investigation itself versus reviewing the information that is conducted? And I understand like it still feels different to me than the review model. Like it still feels a little bit more in depth. I'm curious if there is that middle ground where it's not quite the in-depth involvement by residents in the same way. And I'm brainstorming here, so I'm throwing ideas out to see what resonates with folks. Lynn?
I actually want to build on a point you're making, Anna, and that is that in my own professional experience and in my government experience, the only times that I have known of, been involved in, or called for an investigation, at no time did I personally do it myself. It always was done by somebody who was trained, whose reputation preceded them, and who then was able to provide a totally unbiased report, and very importantly, not from the community. And so one of the things that concerns me about this is all of the risks. I mean, now I'm really into another square here that I think come with even people who've been trained and they're from the community. I mean, it really is, I think, very concerning to have people who are from the community where things are being investigated be in a position of doing investigations. I always feel it like a third neutral party who is well trained with a reputation for that is the best way to avoid bias. So
Thank you. And I think if it's okay, sorry, I can't raise my hand when I'm sharing, so I keep like in my head saying my hand's up and then I don't say it out loud. Councilor Kenna Martin, are you okay if I go, or would you like to, if you'd like to go, you can. and I'll go after you.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to respond to what Lynn said, and I hear what you're saying, but I think, I mean, my understanding of the theory and practice of this model of review board or investigatory board is precisely that it consists of community members and that the community understanding that, the police are a part of our community, they're responsive to our community, and sort of creating that relationship between the police and the community. So in that sense, it wouldn't make sense to have somebody from outside take this role because someone from outside is not building the trust in the relationship. It's the people who live in the community. So I think that maybe it's a bit counterintuitive to the way we usually think of these processes, but I think that's exactly the point that the community has a voice and a say and is empowered to do this work.
Thank you. So my hand was up because I was thinking, Lynn had me thinking about, so I've been a trained investigator in different types of, obviously not this type of thing, but for example, like Title IX investigations. And I think about that work, and it was I had the same experience as Lynn. I think both of us were experiencing this in higher education institutions of external to that community. Those were the folks coming in because of the potential impact that investigation from within not remediation, but investigation from within the community can have on all parties involved. And I do think that that's something that's really important to discuss in terms of, again, I'm in that risk column of, I don't think that there is zero risk of having folks internal to the community be the body investigating. And I think, Counselor Lord, you were talking about restorative circles and restorative justice. And I think for me, that part of the process is different than the investigation part. And I think that both are really important. But I don't want to conflate the two, because I do think that conducting an investigation is different than recommending steps to healing or to restoration or whatever it might be. So I think that I'm leaning towards the investigatory model, but I have concerns about that particular element of it in terms of how are we making sure that we're kind of that sentence isn't going where I wanted it to go, but how are we ensuring the effectiveness of an oversight board if the investigators specifically conducting the investigation are from within the community? But then if they're not, are we just duplicating? Like, I have my concerns about how the post-commission functions, and I don't want to get so far away from our community that we're just duplicating the post-commission in full. So this is, I guess, y'all have hit on my exact point of tension, where I'm still wrestling with it in my own brain. So thank you for letting me verbally process that. Lynn?
Yeah, I mean, I understand where Amber's coming from, but in my mind, the investigation happens. There's a determination to the extent that you can have a clear-cut determination. And then there's a process of restoration. And it's really the most important piece for a community to be involved in is the restoration. I just feel that the investigation being done by community members from the community that they are in is it brings into question whether or not they honestly can do this without bias. And I mean, I can't, to be honest with you, I cannot share with you the various and many of these kinds of things I've been involved in because they were all, personnel situations, and in many cases had non-disclosures and et cetera. But I've never seen doing an investigation requires the utmost integrity of lack of bias. And even when I thought I could be unbiased, it was appropriate for people to say, no, you can't. And I just feel like the place for the restoration is where the community's absolute participation needs to take place, not in the actual investigation.
Counselor Kenna Martin?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think the alternative or the way things are now, the current status quo is that I believe is that if there is some sort of issue or, folks believe that the police, acted wrongly in some way, that it would be dealt with internally by the police department. And, one could say that process also involves a lot of bias. So I think it is also a counterweight to that. And again, I'll just go back to my point that this is why people establish these civilian police review boards or investigative boards, because a counterweight is needed to that, because that, can also be a very biased process. So, many parts of this, may, if, something you're not familiar with may feel counterintuitive, but I believe that's the reason why these entities have been created.
And at the core of it, just to confirm, I mean, I think we're not talking broadly about the merits of the general existence of a resident oversight board conceptually. We haven't, I think, and maybe we could have started there, but I think we've started with this one differentiation, and I am gonna put those paragraphs back up just so we can look at both at the same time here. It's really, unless I'm mistaken, this is really where that branching is, right? It's not, it's the matter of, are they looking at, they're looking at interactions and policies, provide input, raise questions and concerns regarding investigations of community complaints, etc. And then the police and CREST will promptly and thoroughly address their questions and concerns in discussion with the ROB. If the ROB does not agree with those findings, then the police chief or CREST director shall provide written response and discuss it with the ROB. That's option one. Option two is that the ROB themselves will conduct investigations of complaints by gathering evidence and conducting interviews, either using trained investigators, town staff, or themselves to conduct that investigation. After completing its inquiry, they will determine the validity of each complaint. I would like to see a version of this that is the investigatory, that is a combination. And I think that that's possible. I'm uncomfortable for a lot of reasons with the ROB members being the investigators and the adjudicators here. I think that if they can, they would be the ones preparing the questions, all of the things that it's set up here, but the investigation still happens. But I mean, I am not saying that this would happen in Amherst, but I also am concerned about the possibility of retaliation. And I think that if we are setting up a model where we have ROB members who are also investigators, that is a really scary possibility if this model were replicated in other communities with more questionable police officers, right? So I do have concerns on that end of the spectrum. I would like to see a model where they are still looking at this second part, right? I think part two is, I'm okay with that. It's really, for me, my biggest concern is that the ROB members are not only the ones providing the options for remediation and solution, but they're also the ones in the rooms possibly conducting investigations. That's where my biggest concern is in the investigatory model. And so I would rather have this just say either using trained investigators or town staff, and the ROB can choose those investigators, but I'd rather it be an external party. Councillor Lord?
Um, before you brought up that point, because maybe there is something about separating investigator and adjudicator, I was going to say, and I think it might have been said, and I'm sorry, I'm doing double duty right now, about some police that live in Amherst are also investigate in Amherst. I think there's something about people who live in Amherst also understand the context, the unique nature of this town, which would be different than somebody living in Belchertown. Well, Belchertown might be adjacent enough, but Longmeadow or Orange. But I also wanted to say that I hope there would be training. I recuse myself from certain, or I say no to certain clients if I know I have a connection to them. And so I would hope that who is on the resident board would also say, oh, they pulled me over 2 years ago, or some harm happened, and that there be that level of professionalism too. If there is a bias, we always have biases. We always have to work on um, looking at them, reviewing them, and dismantling them. But that if there's direct biases, I appreciate you bringing up the retaliation thing, and that would be something to think about. But yeah, so I'm just presenting that argument for now. Thanks.
Thank you. Counselor Ryan?
So right now, there is no oversight.
Well, locally in town.
That's what I'm talking about.
Well,
So
by residents, I guess.
that's right. In other words, obviously the department internally, I think, conducts reviews of any incidents, and internally may adjust policy or do discipline. But what we are moving towards, and I think there's a general feeling both from the police department, but certainly from the community at large, that some kind of oversight function by residents would be good. The question is, should it be one, as we've discussed now for some time, a review approach or an investigatory approach? The review approach certainly offers a counterweight. The investigatory approach would put the discipline and the actual decision of what to do in the hands of the resident board. They would be, and so what would they do? Would they terminate someone? Would they suspend someone? Would they move someone down from, say, sergeant to, whatever? Would they suggest policy changes or any combination thereof? But any kind of decision that involves personnel is going to be fraught, and is going to be resisted. So I think if you really want oversight and you really want community input, and if you look at what's being done in the Commonwealth at the moment, for apparently many good reasons, the review approach seems to be the one that'll be have the most chance of success. If you go with the investigatory model and you finally have your investigation and you issue your finding, my understanding is that has essentially the same force as something done today internally by the police department. So, and that's going to create a host of issues and challenges because we're talking about people's livelihoods. We're talking about their careers, their professions. So I just think that the review process would be a more prudent and have much greater chance of real success at the goals that many of you say that you want. Whereas the investigatory model is going to create a large host of issues. And the only hope I would have then is it never ever gets used. That when in the discussion, if you listen to the discussion, and they asked Cambridge, which is a substantially larger community than ours, how many actual reviews were conducted? Anyone remember the number?
0.
I'm trying to go
No, it
back.
wasn't 0, but it was about 5.
Okay.
And so no one knows, but I think the point is that if you go to the investigatory model, you're going to have to issue some kind of finding. And if the finding involves discipline of any kind, it's going to be coming from an external source, and that's going to be problematic. Whereas the review model allows the ROB to offer its comments and thoughts. And I think in a town of this size and a police department that we have, that it would be taken with great seriousness.
Thank you. Lynn?
Anna, we're not going to come to conclusion tonight.
Probably
one
not.
of the things that seems to be at the crux of this is the issue of who does the investigation.
I
Okay.
think that's one of, I'm sure that there are others. I
There
think
may be others, but that does seem to be at the crux of it. So I'm going to recall this because some people on the committee were on the council and some people were not. But when we had the July 5th event, a person on our staff who is considered to be of serious integrity was asked to do the investigation. And to this day, no one accepts that investigation. And so I use that as an example. I shouldn't say no one. A very serious segment of the community does not accept the investigation. In addition to that, they don't accept the outcome. So again, what I think is critical is to separate investigation from remediation or whatever consequences come after investigation. I don't think you can have both in the same hands. It's one of the reasons why we have juries and we have judges. So that's one reason why I again go back to, if we're going to come up with a blended model or at least open up that option, then I think we have to deal with the fact that investigation has to be done by an external trained person who is not an employee, who is not a member of the community, and if they're trained well, they know how to pick up the nuances of any community, no matter how unique we think we are.
we haven't even gotten to who would do that training and what are they trained in, but that's a different topic altogether. Councilor Kuno Martin. Councilor Kuno Martin.
Yeah, no, I also just wanted to go back to what Counselor Ryan said about discipline. So my reading of this document, of the memo, is that even under the investigatory model, the ROB can only make a recommendation and also has the option for suggesting mediation. So it's my understanding that the ROB, no matter what model, would not be imposing any sort of discipline on anybody.
And I think that was where we saw in the letter from the two police unions about conflicts with established disciplinary processes and the like too. Just
I mean, if somebody reads this differently or can cite the text where it says differently, please let me know. But the way I'm reading it is it's recommendations and it could suggest mediation.
Then I guess I'm puzzled as to what difference there is. I mean, somebody ultimately has to carry out a discipline. If the investigation finds fault, then there has to be consequences. And if the ROB is simply investigating and then recommending that the chief do X, Y, or Z, and the chief can say, thank you very much, but I'm not going to do that, then it sounds pretty much like the review board. I mean, the review board basically is reading and reviewing the internal work of the police department, and from the lens of various things that are listed in the document, to ensure fairness and following policy and so on. Then they issue their findings. And if there's disagreement between them and the police chief or the police department, then they meet and they try to resolve that. If they can't resolve it, then you end up with sort of dueling reports. But the actions that will be followed from this are taken by the chief within the department. And I'm looking at this again. My understanding was that the main difference was that investigatory actually had teeth, in the sense that it could then dictate what the discipline had to be. And the only recourse would then be through the law courts, I guess, if one objected to that, Or, but if it's not, then it's not clear what, there doesn't seem to be all that much difference, except who does the investigation. And again, I think you want buy-in from both sides. And I just find this to be, the approach is that, yeah, how are you going to get buy-in from the other side?
So, oh, sorry.
Now,
So both models have the make recommendations to the chief of police and the Crest director.
good.
Both models have recommends to the town council and I believe the chief for changes in policy. It really is truly my reading of this is the difference is who is conducting the investigations. And I think that if we're kind of to parse that out a little bit, it's really about what information or who is responding to questions posed by whom and what those questions are, right? So the review board, and this is why I think the review board is missing a little bit of substance here. The review board is looking at investigations that have been conducted already by the APD Office of Professional Standards or by the HR department if it's Crest. Their review basically look at, to kind of put it at the risk of being flippant, at paperwork that's been completed. And then the APD or Crest will promptly and thoroughly address those questions in discussion. So they're still addressing questions, but it's questions regarding the investigation paperwork, not initial questions regarding the incident at hand. And then if the ROB does not agree, they just have to write a response back and discuss it. So again, this is more of kind of, I guess I'll call it a conversational model. And then it flips to the same thing at the end where they can have recommendations. The difference, the second option too, is really just that the ROB is the ones possibly, doesn't have to be, but is possibly the one sitting in that room conducting interviews. I have questions about what is meant by gathering evidence. I would like clarity on specifically what that means. And then the ROB is the one determining the validity of each complaint. They're not necessarily in this first one determined. I think that's another key point here is the findings have already occurred in the review model, whereas in the investigatory model, the ROB is determining validity of the complaint and it is making the findings. So I think that for me, those are that's the differentiation is the ROB's doing the interviews and making the finding versus the ROB is reviewing the interview or the questions that have already been asked and reviewing the finding that's already been completed by the internal or by the Office of Professional Standards. I don't know if that is true in other folks' readings, but that's my understanding. I don't believe that in either model anything changes about required disciplinary or corrective actions. Counselor Cannon Martin?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're correct in saying that. And I just wanted to go back to item 1 under option 2. So I'm wondering if folks would feel comfortable if we struck the part where it says ROB members, and then to recommend the investigatory model. That would mean that we would have trained investigators or town staff being responsible for that, since that seems to be the area where we're really differing.
Counselor Ryan? I'm listening. I'm gonna get another seltzer, so I'm right behind my desk.
So-
I'm listening.
In the end, if with the investigatory model, it's still left up to the chief what to do.
Well, it's not. You said the investigatory model is still left up to the chief.
Yeah, I mean,
The-
they come and say, here's what our findings, and this is what we think should be done. And the chief still has to make a decision, correct?
I think that the question is because my understanding is that the police department has progressive disciplinary standards that are set and written. And so I think the question is if the ROB finds an investigation to be, an officer at fault, is the chief then obligated to follow those progressive disciplinary standards as written out? In which case then, George, you could say that you were like that. In that case, I could see the argument that the ROB is in some sense is responsible for discipline or determining the disciplinary process, but they're not necessarily the ones saying what should happen. So I think the question is, does the chief have to then follow those standards of discipline based on the findings of the ROB?
What if he disagrees with the findings of the ROB?
I don't know the answer to that question.
No, I mean, maybe he looks at it and he says, I don't agree with them. Again, I guess we just need some clarification, but, yeah.
Okay, hang on. I'm gonna jot down some notes on the bottom here to make sure I'm capturing this lively discussion. Oh my God. Everything's doing. Counselor Kenna Martin?
Yeah, George, to respond to you, I mean, I think the way I read it is that if the chief disagrees, then he doesn't have to do what the ROB says. I feel like it's almost as similar to the Human Rights Commission charge that we just went over, where it can certainly, make some recommendations or suggest mediation, but I don't think that the ROB's decision is binding in any way. It's sort of like makes recommendations.
And so again, I guess, Amber, it gets me back to the argument that if you can keep the process where the two parties are working together, you have a much better chance of a positive outcome. But if it resides with just one party, and then they come and say, here's what we've decided, it puts the chief it puts him in a difficult situation, because he's not been party to this. His department's been excluded from this. They're being investigated by whomever, whether it's by an outside investigator or by, I find it difficult to imagine that a staff member could anyway, whoever is the investigator, it's someone outside the police department. So they're not involved in this process until a determination is made. And I think part of the power of the review process is hardly perfect, but they're involved in this process from the beginning. And there's a constant back and forth and a conversation and a dialogue. And as I think one of the consultants commented in the interview, in the tape that we all listened to, if you get to the point where that conversation, that kind of dialogue isn't happening, you've got deeper problems. And that's my concern, is that the investigatory model, the final result is produced, it's presented to the police department, and then they're tasked with deciding what to do next in a process that they've not been involved with at all. And that, I think, is not healthy, and it will not lead to the kinds of outcomes that I think most of us are trying to get to.
So George, if I might, Amber, if it's okay. It's interesting because I don't actually see the review board as a collaborative model. I see it in the way that I think you're describing, and I'm curious where we're seeing it differently, because when I look at this is essentially the investigation has been completed by one party, one internal party, unless I'm mistaken. And then the ROB is just looking at what's already been completed and asking questions about, again, something that's already been completed. If they disagree, all they can say is we disagree, not we are finding a different finding. And then they just write letters back and forth to each other. Whereas in this model, I actually see this as possibly, maybe collaborative isn't the word. Maybe there isn't a model that's actually collaborative. But I see the second model as bringing in, if we are able to go with the idea of using trained investigators or town staff from outside the affected department, I see that as having a third party who's able to listen and gather information from each group without possibly coming in or feeling like there's a bias right off the bat. I think that there's concern that there's going to be bias when the investigation has been conducted on a more internal level versus having an external person come in, that then both parties can review their findings and findings of fact, not findings of result, I guess, if that makes sense. So I think yeah, I see a neutral party as a strength in this situation versus having it be an internally conducted investigation, which is what the current case is, and our community has not seen that as satisfactory, I think, in many ways.
Because no one has had access to the internal documents and has access to the evidentiary files. And now, under the review model, seven hopefully respected citizens will have access to that information and be able to review it and ask questions about it and then produce their own findings. And you're right, it's a kind of back and forth, largely probably through memo, but it's a true back and forth. So that's a very different situation than the one that exists today. If we have the investigatory model, this is conducted by some entity, whoever it may be, independent, outside, whatever, and then the result is presented to the police department to then decide what to do.
Can I ask where you're seeing the part where,
It's not, I don't think they necessarily, I mean, they certainly could sit in a room and talk to each other, but I think you're right. Most of it is, they have access to all relevant memos and documents and evidence, etc. And they review that as a body, and they can ask further questions and ask for clarification. And then so they have access to records. I guess the way it's currently written, two members function as a kind of subcommittee to be in the process. And then they deliberate and provide their findings.
hang on, where, I'm so sorry, where are you, George, so I can have it up?
Section four of the review process review model, section four,
Thank you.
under document 3. I know it's a long,
No,
complicated.
you're fine. I appreciate it.
So section 4, it's spelled out fairly, so again, it's just, for the first time, the public through these 7 representatives will have access to these files and ability to ask questions and get clarification and issue their own independent findings.
I'm so sorry, George. Where are you, because that's one of my concerns is where how much access to information they'll have, and I'm not, if you could point that out to me.
Again, section 4, review process, review model.
Oh, we're in two different.
Page 23
We're in
of
two
the
different
document, page
section
23.
fours, that's why.
And
There we go. Okay.
right, so
Yep, I was in a different section 4. Sorry.
they have access to records, they do deliberations and findings, they get a response from the department, whether it's the police or CRES, and then they issue their final report. I think there will be a lot more information and a lot more public insight into the process under this model than the model where an independent or outside agent conducts their own investigation and then produces a finding.
Counselor Kenna Martin?
Yeah, so I just wanted to go back a few steps to the idea that if somebody has a complaint, and they bring it, let's say we have the ROB with an investigatory model, would it be brought simultaneously to the police department to also make their own investigation? I guess that's a question I have, and I don't know who can answer that for us because, I think with the review model, it's assumed that the complaint has gone to the police department and they've done their own investigation and we're just reviewing it. So, um, I guess it could be useful even with an investigatory model to have access to, whatever the police investigation showed, so that if then there's additional questions or maybe the board wants to do some additional interviews or look up some additional paperwork, whatever the case may be, they can do that. So, I mean, I guess I'm not an expert on this, but I could see some utility to like having complaints go both to the ROB and to the police department simultaneously. And then, I think just speaking to the review board versus the what Councilor Ryan was just saying, I think it's really important to again look to the BIPOC community on this because they are the ones that have brought this forward. They are the ones that have asked us to choose investigatory model, and they are the most impacted, right? So we understand, how policing can disproportionately impact communities of color. It's not a new thing. Like it's come out in research, it's come out in our own research. So I think we have to listen to what they're saying. And if they're saying this is the version that will restore the most trust and that we think is the best process, I think that's how we should guide ourselves. Not on what we think is, necessarily, oh, this process is superior to the other. I think folks have looked at that and that's what they're finding.
I'm going to take just one more comment on this, and then we're going to have to pause on this to get to the other items on our agenda tonight. But I appreciate folks digging in. I think it sounds like maybe when we come back to this discussion, we will, it sounds like we need to really do a compare and contrast situation, and if there is a middle option or what edits we would make to either model to kind of come to a happy place, could be on the table for that next discussion. Unless someone has a different plan moving forward, I think that's going to be the best bet. But we do have a lot of other items on our agenda. So is there anything else folks would like to add before we wrap up on this today? Councilor Ryan?
Well, last time you suggested some homework for us, and
Yeah.
I think I found it helpful.
Okay.
This is a question for all of us, not just for you, it's for me as well.
You want me to give you more homework?
Well, no, I mean, what would you suggest we try to do in the next 2 weeks?
Yeah.
We have some questions that I don't know if they can be answered by members of this group that shaped this. I don't think the consultants are available to us at this point. Certainly not for free. To whom do we turn for clarification? It's just a practical question. The other question is, what do any of us think would be the most useful use of our time over the next 2 weeks to prepare? Maybe it is simply a much thorough reading of this document. As you could see, I think I misread at least the outcome portion, because I don't see anything there that resembles what I was claiming was the case. So I clearly need to read it again with greater care. So beyond reading the document again, can anyone suggest some specific things that we might want to be focusing on?
All right.
Help sharpen the discussion. Maybe you can suggest that in a memo later to us. But that's the only thought I have is, what
Well,
can I do in the next 2 weeks?
Okay, so thinking out loud, I appreciate that. And I think it's wise to kind of wrap this up with an assignment versus just kind of stopping discussion fully. I do think that, this is a 36-page document and it's really hard to kind of compare and contrast them. So I do think that what we should do is get some clarity. And I'm gonna invite people to do this on their own, but to literally, if you're a visual person like me, put each model next to each other and look at the differences between the two so that we're really clear on what those differences are. I then want us to think about what I don't need us to go back to a SWOT analysis if that doesn't resonate, but what are your concerns or concerns that you've heard with each model, and what would they look like if repaired? Like, is it a matter of they just can't be in here at all, or is it a matter of they could be adjusted slightly? So what would it take to get you to vote yes on either model, whichever one you don't currently agree with, or if you don't like either? What would need to change in order to get you to a yes? And I think that's going to be where we will have good debate, is a matter of, can we get all 5 of us to a yes on some version of this? So I think do a split down the middle of it's the same here, it's the same here, it's different here, and then what those differences are. And then I think we are very lucky that on our committee we have a liaison to CSSJC. And so I think that if we have specific questions for CSSJC as follow-up, because they wrote us a letter, Councillor Lord could be a person to do that. One of the rest of us could volunteer. I'm thinking about the 2 groups that we received letters from specifically. So if Councillor Lord is willing to, as liaison, take any questions that we have to CSSJC, and then if one of us is willing to reach out to Nicholas Chandler, excuse me, and Lindsay Carroll from APD to see if they would sit down and answer any questions, we could do that just to get some clarity. But I think we need to determine what those questions are so that we're not just wasting everybody's time. And we need to do a compare and contrast so that we're really clear on this. This is a very long way of saying, I think, 3 homework assignments. Do you want me to say them one more time just to be clear?
Well, I think that's a good thought. You want us to see what we think would have to change to get us to a yes. It would be
Yep.
nice if we could present a 5-0 recommendation. So that I
Sure.
think is a fruitful exercise, at least for me. When I think of the investigatory model, what would I like to see changed that would get me to agree to it? And so that could be a good exercise. Compare and contrast between the two is the second thing I heard.
Yeah.
And the third is I'm reaching
The
out
third
to, yeah, go ahead.
It's okay. The third might not happen until after we have our next discussion, but I think that it's what questions do we have for the two bodies that have been pretty instrumental in bringing this forward to fruition? Like you said, we don't have the consultants anymore, but what questions do we have for CSSJC and for the police unions that would help us to get a better understanding of what is going to kind of meet the needs of our community?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me. I'm clear now. Thank you.
Any questions on our homework? Okay.
Grading on a curve, right?
What?
You're grading on a curve? The
I
homework.
give stickers. It's the
Okay.
color
I
stick
used to give
you get
pluses and
from.
minuses, check plus, check minus,
Oof.
and the dreaded,
The
I forget what the dreaded one was.
see me
What did
after
you, I
class
didn't use
is the
you,
dreaded one.
right?
So as someone who received a few of those, I will just say,
I can imagine.
rude. Okay. So here's the only hang up I'm having is that I will not be here for the next GOL meeting. So if you all would like to continue this discussion, you are welcome to. You also are, what I had suggested to Councillor Cano Martin is it was a little bit of a selfish suggestion just because I'm deeply invested in this particular topic, was that you possibly could spend the 26th looking at some of the charter recommendations and reviewing those, but that will be ultimately up to Councillor Cano Martin as chair of that meeting to decide what is the best use of that time. And okay, so I'm going to move on to our remaining items unless folks have anything else to say. If you have questions on your homework, please speak now or email me and call me if I don't respond to your email. Okay. Okay, we're going to move on. Thank you all. That was, I know that this is a challenging process because it's such a weighty topic and there's so much there, but I do think that we are slowly untangling it as we continue to discuss. We're going to move on to, we've got a bunch of proclamations in the packet. So we're going to start with, whoa, I'm in the wrong date. We're going to start with Juneteenth. Lynn, thank you for getting that to us.
And again, people are welcome to add their names.
I was going to say I would love to add my name if you're okay with it, but
Absolutely.
okay. Councillor Lord, was that a you as well?
Yes, please.
Okay. Normally, Lynn, you know that I get cranky about just adding names without doing significant edits, but I'm breaking my own rule.
Oh, can I be
Thank you.
can I be added as well?
Yeah. All right.
We do it alphabetically too.
I know we do. All right.
That means you go first.
No,
Oh, actually, Cano Martin goes
I
first.
know. I'm like weirdly in the middle of the vote roll this year. It's really throwing me off. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L. All right. Okay.
And Lord.
I did. She's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L. Yeah.
And Lord.
I don't like ands. What if I just wanted to list it? Fine.
Fine.
All right. Is there a reason why this is in bold?
No.
Okay. And then I don't think we've been italicizing. I'm just trying to, this is not a, we for some reason got away from the italics.
Great.
All right, let's go ahead and review the first few whereases and let me know. I'm just going to take a look at this. Town of Amherst. All right. Does Afro-Indigenous have a hyphen? I know this is really picky. I feel like it might, but can someone
I'll check.
Google that for me? Thank you. All right. Once Eslin's looking that up, comma here. Anything
Oh, I
else?
have to get my glasses.
You're fine. I'm hoping other folks are continuing to read as I scroll. Something's funky with this spacing here, but I'll fix that after.
No, it does not.
All right.
Missed one.
All right. Now I feel like I've contributed and I can.
Not now, therefore, it should not be italicized.
She's getting ahead of me. All right. Any edits? Do we want to put in the address of Ancestral Bridges in here, Lynn, or no? No?
We don't usually include addresses.
I wasn't sure. All right. Okay. Is there a motion to find the Town of Amherst 2026 Juneteenth proclamation clear, consistent, and actionable?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Ryan, second.
All right. Sorry, I gotta copy this. I'm gonna call the vote. Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
Counselor Kenna Martin,
Yes.
Lynn,
Aye.
I am an aye. Counselor Lord.
Aye.
Sorry, that was a great vote. Just a very loud hallelujah. I'm gonna take as an aye, but I did hear you in the background. Okay. Clear, consistent, and actionable. It's Clar too. Okay. Next up, we've got Pride Month 2026. In the wrong font, but that's fine. Hang on. All right. And I will say I, as one of the sponsors, made an edit to this today, so I do want us to review it. And I'm happy to speak to that edit. I did confirm with the other sponsors that it was okay, and encouraged. So take a moment to read. I did learn from Lynn's last one that I put the semicolon in the wrong place. This is the new paragraph for folks who have already read this. And then there's another new paragraph at the bottom. And I'll read this out. I don't know. Sorry, I clearly have this open in two places. Let me try to find it so my cursor isn't blocking it anymore. I don't know where it is. All right. It said, be it further proclaimed that this year in particular, we remember Connie Kruger, former select board member and town planner, who with her wife Susan was one of the first lesbian couples to be married in the town of Amherst in 2004. Connie passed away in May 2026. She will be dearly missed, and her impact and memory are indelible. And this was something, I'll speak to this, the sponsors and I discussed. We recently learned that Connie had passed away. And I guess for me personally, having gotten married to my wife last year, and getting the opportunity to talk to Connie and Susan about their experience being one of the first gay couples to get married in Amherst was incredibly powerful. Connie gave an immense amount of her life to this community in a number of ways, and the sponsors felt that it was it was a very small acknowledgement for the deep amount that she gave our town to kind of dedicate this year's proclamation to her. And I'm not gonna get teary about it. Are there any edits to this that folks would like to make? Okay. With that, I will make the motion to find the Town of Amherst proclamation recognizing June as lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer, plus LGBTQ Pride Month clear, consistent, and actionable. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. I'm gonna call the vote. Whoa. Counselor Kano Martin,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
I'm an aye. Counselor Lord,
Aye.
thank you. Lynn,
Aye.
all right, and that's everybody. Who seconded me on that? Amber, was it you? No.
This Lynn.
I was
I'm
gonna
sorry.
try to, but Lynn beat me.
It's okay. Sorry about that. All right. Okay, thank you. Thank you. 1, 2, Race Amity Day. Okay. Next up.
Again, other sponsors are welcome.
Okay, thank you. I'm just gonna
I would be happy to co-sponsor that one.
Great.
excellent.
Race Amity, well, any of them actually. But
You're good. I just was no, I was I was making a new copy in my draft. Councilors Kano Martin. I'm happy to as well. All right. Okay. Community sponsors. I feel like it's weird, but because the exclamation point is in their name, I still think there needs a comma after Citizens for Race Amity Now. I
I'm
know
fine.
that looks very weird, but it feels
I'm fine.
okay. All right. Whereas the town of Amherst holds dear the motto of the United States of America. Whereas the Amherst Town Council on December 7th, 2020 passed, I'm going to put this in italics because it's the title of the resolution. Lynn, again, thank you for getting these
Yeah.
in.
Just was easier to get them going now.
Yeah. Whereas
Both
town
of
of
them
Amherst,
do have events, but they're not. Well, this one actually has the event in it.
yeah. I think the Acts, right? Is it the Acts? Chapter 163 of the Acts of 2015? Of Acts?
Yes.
The Acts? Okay, thank you. I was gonna struggle with that one for
also
a
a
while.
book in the Bible, if you want to say that.
I like the look of the Bible.
Yeah, never mind. I'm not gonna go there. Okay. Now therefore, is it that I'm sorry, I'm nitpicky. Is it we, the town council, or is it the town of Amherst, or is it either?
I think it's we, the town council.
All right, that's what I thought. I just wanted to double check.
Or we, the Amherst Town Council.
We, the Amherst Town Council, yeah.
Yeah.
Hereby proclaims. Excellent. All right, is there a motion to find the Town of Amherst proclamation recognizing June 14th, 2026 as Race Amity Day? Clear, consistent, and actionable.
So moved.
Dang it, Lynn.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay.
I'm never gonna be, you're so fast, Lynn. I don't know how you do it.
Remember, I've had a lot more years of practice on it.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna call the vote. Counselor Kano Martin,
Yes.
Counselor Lord,
Aye.
Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
Lynn,
Aye.
and I am an aye as well. All right, well done. There we go. Okay, we've got proposed amendments to water and sewer regulations, discussing rate changes. So this was in the packet. And our task at hand, Athena confirming, is clarity, consistency, and actionability. That's correct, right?
Yep, that's right.
Thank you. So we are not just what that means as a reminder. We are not talking through the actual changes. We're just saying, does this document make sense? Is it clear? Is it consistent? And is it actionable? Is there a difference between these two? No, this is just so that we could make any changes if needed. That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, it's the same. I just had to do it in PDF to post online.
I appreciate you having the Word version in here.
And the amendments are at the very end.
Excellent. So I'm going to propose we look primarily at the amendments, unless folks would like to go through the entire thing. This is something that has been found clear, consistent, and actionable by many GOLs past. The amendment is really the part that is different from what we've reviewed before, although there's a couple, seems like, differences in fonts that I'm going to let go because it's fine. All right.
It's just the amendments that were referred.
Oh, really? Okay, that's good to know. Thank you so much for clarifying. I will really let the fonts go then. Clarity, consistency, and actionability of these two changes. Changing 2025 to 2026, and is the change from 695 to 730 clear, consistent, and actionable? Councilor Ryan?
I don't want to raise this, but why not? Does this really have to come to us?
It's a good question.
Well, I mean, I imagine it's written down in some set of rules somewhere that we have no choice, so maybe we should just get done with it. But this seems like something that should be done internally. It's right. I mean, yeah, but
It seems like something that could be done at a council meeting without a referral.
yeah, I don't know why it's coming to us. But anyway, why don't we just, it's perfectly clear, perfectly actionable. And so I move that this is clear, consistent, and actionable.
I'll get a second before we go on to further discussion. Is
Come on,
there-
Amber.
I second.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you. Further discussion, Athena?
I talked about this with Amy because we also agree that it's a little bit cumbersome of a process to go through the whole bylaw amendment every time we have a rate change. And at the time, you probably recall, Anna, you had a hand in doing all of this. At the time, we were advised by our town attorney to set up the bylaws and regulations this way so that any change in the regulations, including a rate change, have to be published in the newspaper twice, and they have to go through this bylaw amendment process rather than a simpler process. So now that we've kind of been through this a few years and recognize that, I mean, we're not seeing a lot of public attention or input about this. It seems like this is, kind of a matter of course year over year. I would suggest that, for next year, when we come with rate changes, we take a look at whether or not we need to have this as part of the process. But for this year,
It is.
with the time that we have, this is what we're doing.
Well, except that next year we may have some serious big changes if we're going to do a big renovation at wastewater.
So I think that, yeah, so Athena mentioned this. I was on TSO when we did a really, really deep dive into water and sewer rates. Poor Amy Orsaki probably saw way more of me than she ever wants to in her entire life, because I was the person from TSO who was trying to kind of support the process. And so for that reason, I think that I would caution us in terms of fully offloading this from GOL's review in terms of any changes to water and sewer rates. But I do think if there's a way to kind of call out the rate changes from needing GOL review, but instead maybe we talk about and make a recommendation or mention in our report that this is something that we believe should be included in the budget memo or something like that, where more people are tuned in about financial matters. If there's a different way to do it, we can recommend that the council discuss alternative ways to make the public aware of changing rates. Counselor Ryan, sorry.
So are we imagining that residents could come to a GOL meeting and express their displeasure at the size of this increase, as if we have any say over it at all? Or is that,
My understanding was if there are other changes, we wanted to make sure GOL had reviewed it, but that most changes tend to just be the rate change. And so we hadn't necessarily separated them out, and that this was part of that full process for resident awareness. Athena?
The GOL review is because it's tied to a bylaw, and GOL is required
Oh,
to
right.
review bylaw changes.
Yeah.
I don't believe that the intent for the GOL review is for, to raise public awareness. That's the part of the requirements that I mentioned about publish in the newspaper twice, and we have to post, and there's a special comment period at the meeting before the council votes and so on. So
Mhm.
all of those special things that we do for water and sewer rate changes that we don't even do for all bylaws. So I think maybe next year, if the council is interested, we could evaluate whether or not we can make some of those changes and make the process easier in the future.
Sorry, I'm just making sure I got my notes.
If there's consensus among this committee that, these additional steps are, if the committee feels that they're not as necessary, then it might be helpful to put that in your report so that gives
Yeah.
staff the impetus to look into making those changes for next year.
So let me confirm. I feel like I've heard this from the committee, but before I write in that the committee generally agrees, I'd like to hear from the committee. Is there any disagreement? Does anyone believe that these rates, that it's really important for rate changes, bylaw or non-bylaw, but like the concept of rate changes to come to GOL? Does anyone feel strongly about them coming to GOL? Okay. So I'm going to say the committee generally agreed that a streamlined process for rate changes where they do not need to go through GOL would be beneficial. Great. We've got to vote. So, Lynn,
Aye.
Councilor Ryan,
Aye.
Councilor Lord,
Aye.
Councilor Karen Martin,
Yes.
and I am an aye as well. Okay. All right. So,
And sorry for butting in. I think you had only showed one set of the
oh my God.
changes, but the vote was for water and sewer, right?
Yes, I'm sorry. I only had one up on the board, the computer. I can pull the other
Yeah.
one up so that we've looked at both.
I just want to make sure that vote applied to both.
Yes,
Set of changes.
the motion was for both, but
Okay,
just to
thank
make
you.
sure that I put both up on the screen. Oh my God. The sewer ones are the water ones are so long. There we go. Okay. All right. Yep.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so let's finish out this agenda for the day. We have received one, oh wait, yeah, we've received one CAF for the bylaw review committee. Not enough for a committee, unfortunately. So we will continue to do this. I know I have a district meeting coming up in June where I'll be promoting it. I would encourage folks to please promote this as you see fit. Athena is currently winning the prize for recruitment. Athena?
Sorry.
I was just, thank you. I love prizes.
Athena volunteered to join the committee? No. Okay.
I'm
Yeah,
already
confident.
going to be serving as liaison. I can't wait.
Well, there you go. We have one already. All
No,
right.
my question was, I'm not sure if you, Anna, or if your vice chair, Councilor Keno Martin, is doing the communications with applicants, but because we do have an applicant and we're probably not going to be in touch about an interview date and so on. It would be helpful
Yep.
if you want to let me know that one of you is doing that, or I can do that, but someone ought to communicate with the applicant.
You are right. And Counselor Kendall Martin, do you feel strongly about it, or would you like me to do it?
No, I don't feel strongly about it. That's fine if you
Okay.
do it.
I will reach out. Thank you, Athena. That's a really helpful reminder.
Thank you. I don't want to leave the person hanging that I did get to apply.
That would be terrible if we lost that person because yeah. All right. Saying it might be a while. Okay, so let's keep promoting that, please, as we go. I don't think we need to get to the interview questions yet. We don't have a pool to get to there. So, we've got about 20 minutes to talk through the town manager evaluation process. And I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for a second, to go through this. So, sorry, I need to pull up my notes here to make sure. If anyone needs like a 20-second stretch break. Okay. I want us to first review what we did last year for the council, because I think that's going to be the shortest piece of the discussion. And then we will go to the discussion on what GOL should focus on, sorry, I can't click and talk at the same time. What I'd like to spend most of GOL's time on this year, which is the community and staff evaluation components. So I am going to pull up the version that the council discussed last year. And just to give some background, and I'll invite Lynn, I think was on the committee, and Councilor Lord were on the committee at this point. What we shifted last year. So the town manager evaluation last year shifted to being on SharePoint, not on SharePoint, on Forms, Microsoft Forms, and was a more quantitative look at the work of the town manager. So the background here is that when the town manager evaluation was brought forward for the council, it used to be much more of a reflection, and it allowed a lot of kind of meandering and evaluation that was much more subjective, depending on the counselor who was completing it. When I came onto GOL, this became kind of my pet project. I will fully admit that, because I found that we weren't providing an evaluation that allowed the town manager to actually create new developmental goals for himself or get an actual good grasp on what the council felt about his performance. It was more of kind of what the average view was, because everybody had different opinions on his goals. So we then backed up and really started focusing on how we were writing the goals for the town manager. George was part of this first iteration because that's where we started. And we tried to make sure that the goals were written in a way that there could be no debate as to whether or not a goal was accomplished. So goals aren't necessarily supposed to be, did he do this item in the way I wanted him to do it? It's really about, did he do it in the way that we as a council voted on how it should get done? So we tried to make them a lot clearer. We also tried to make them a lot more specific, and we tried to focus in, I'm saying tried a lot. We have not fully achieved this. We tried to make them more manageable to do within a year. So circle back to the evaluation process last year, half of it focused on the town manager's duties as defined by the charter, and then half of it focused on the goals. And we provided a metric, or a scale, excuse me, in terms of kind of level of completeness that the town manager accomplished those goals. And then we provided a kind of top 3 strengths and top 3 areas of growth for the coming year. And those were qualitative, as folks answered it. All right. I can't find the actual one that was sent, so I'll just show you the draft that we created in GOL that was shared with Lynn, who was then president of the council, who created it as a new version that went out, or Athena or Angela, I can't remember, someone. So this was what the council reviewed, or this is similar to what the council reviewed last year. So you can see job performance, and it was, satisfactorily met or exceeded, met some but not all, did not meet or minimally met, and then an option of not able to judge, not enough information. This was a pretty important one because there are a lot of, especially in the charter, a lot of job responsibilities of the town manager that we don't necessarily always see. So we made sure to add that one in. And then all of this was pulled from the charter, administer all provisions of the general law, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just going to kind of scroll through and see if there are any questions about what the town council did last year on the town manager evaluation. Lynn, is there anything that you would like to add from your perspective as former council president on this iteration of the process specifically from the town council's part of it?
On the particular pieces with regard to the charter, I think many people felt that they just didn't know. And one of the ironies was, as you might recall, George was vice president at the time. And because we were regularly meeting with Paul, we would tend to know.
Yeah.
And whether or not, he had signed a contract or that kind of thing that normally we don't get into. So, I'll reflect later on whether or not how I feel about the value of this portion of the evaluation. But that was a interesting thing that I noticed and actually led to some disagreement among counselors as to whether or not the town manager had done certain things. But so let me just, I'll wait until we evaluate whether or not we think this part of it worked.
No problem. Counselor Kenna Martin?
Was there a qualitative portion to this, or are you getting there? Because this.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. The qualitative piece was at the end where we asked 3 areas of strength and 3 areas of improvement. So this was the portion. And the reason why we tried to kind of condense the qualitative piece was prior to this, the length of the evaluation was cumbersome beyond utility. It was not, it did not result in a helpful document because at the end of the day, this is the annual summative evaluation of work. And so we tried to focus the qualitative part so as to not kind of have the discussion of the goals become subjective. And because again, we would get truly pages on each goal, and to focus it on where would folks like to go. So kind of what did we see go well, and then these discussions also helped us to kind of start off the goals discussion for the coming year.
Okay. Can I just give a quick opinion on that, or are we just
Sure.
okay? So what you shared so far, I felt like, especially when you had the questions that corresponded to duties as listed in the charter, I feel like there could have been maybe like a comment space at the end because to like explain why you rated them. I mean, optional, but like explain why you rated him that way.
Yeah.
Because I think that, you could do really well in some aspects of that, but not so well in others. And it's like, okay, so where do you put him? And then like, why did you put him there? So I would be curious, if, why people gave him the rankings that he did, especially if they were like in the middle somewhere, like, was there a certain thing he did really well, a certain thing that he didn't do well? And then so you put him in the middle, like, and then adding just that piece if people want to fill it out, but not obligating them to.
Yeah, I think, and it's really interesting to explore that, and I think it'll be, and we can mock up different versions. I think that the challenge, my understanding of one of the biggest challenges of this is that at the end of the day, we have to consolidate this into one document. And it has to be a general document from the council as a whole. And I think one of the challenges that Lynn expressed in her prior experience was when you have a lot of folks doing that rationale and explanation, and yet you also kind of need to average those scores. How do you take into account those responses? And so I think that was one of, and Lynn, if I'm not summarizing how you've described this accurately, please step in. But yeah,
Especially if you don't see a trend. If there's
right.
a trend in comments, like 5 counselors have said something very similar, now you have a trend. But if one counselor said something, does that really belong in the summative evaluation? Recognizing, by the way, all counselors' individual evaluations are public and the town manager sees them.
Yep. So yeah, so I think it's an interesting question of how we might add in additional qualitative information gathering. I think that for me, Amber, your question is actually more, or if I'm understanding your question, I think that it, that kind of question should kick back to GOL of what questions are we asking if folks don't feel that they can kind of answer it in that clear way, we should be thinking about how we're asking the question better. And so we're a little bit limited because that's how the charter part is written, but like, is there another way to get at kind of, again, you're getting a brainstorm here, but like almost confidence in your response of like, are you really sure? Or is there something missing? Or are you kind of, how much would you weight your response or whatever? I don't know. I want to think on that because I think my concern is the amount of how to make sure that we are getting the most concise and helpful, like where if those are our two axes, how to get the most concise and most helpful information so that we can compile it in a way that's turns it into a useful document. As we go through this, I will also be asking Paul for his thoughts on the changes from last year, and I'm happy to ask former counselors as well as current counselors as well if folks would like me to do that too. Okay, so it sounds like so far one of the questions we're going to discuss is possibly more qualitative components on the responses. I also think, Amber, just I'm remembering more conversation as I'm saying it out loud. The sheer number of goals that we have, offering a comment box on each one, which is what we used to do, it took I guess I'll speak for myself. It took me about 4 hours one time to do my evaluation. It takes a significant amount of time to do this. And again, the information for the council president to try to consolidate became just a copy of everybody's individuals if we were going to try to capture everything, or folks would feel like their responses were left out. So I think it's something that is worth discussing very intentionally. Councilor Cannon Martin, go ahead.
I'm just going to make one more recommendation.
Yeah.
And that is so one thing that's really transformed the way I do evaluation at my job is having AI do the summaries of the qualitative data. And it does really quite well at identifying trends and it will sort things by frequency. And I do a lot of evaluation of like workshops and stuff. And I feel like, especially for something like that, you need qualitative data and quantitative, and both are really important. And its usefulness has gone so much higher now that I can just have AI do the summary. However people feel about AI. Anyway, I just want to put that out there.
I hear you. And I think you and I'm happy to like, I would love to kind of get coffee and sit down and talk about this. My professional world is also very close to this. I do learning and development and part of my job is handling is helping to oversee our performance management process. And so I think it's a really interesting question of how we utilize quantitative and qualitative data in that. I think that generally as a town, we have not established an AI use policy. And so I think that I'm hesitant to recommend usage as a town in terms because we don't have a set use policy in terms of is my understanding. But I think that I don't mind qualitative data analysis and doing it. I think the concern is that we will be hard pressed to have 13 of us agree with any qualitative analysis that is done. I think just having seen an attempt at summaries having been done before, I do have concerns about that. But I'm not, and I want to be clear, absolutely not ruling this out. I think I want to have dialogue about this further as we continue on the process. I'm being cognizant of time. And I want to just touch really quickly on the other elements of the process that need a lot more help even than this part. If that's okay. So trying to find, and my apologies for this. Athena, if you are faster than I am, you always are faster than I am, but I'm trying to find the blank copy of the evaluation that is sent to town staff. We have that.
I'm not sure I can put my hands on that quickly because it
That's
doesn't usually
totally-
come from me.
Yeah, that's
I can
yeah.
put my hands
Lynn
on
might
it.
have it, yeah.
Yeah, hold on.
Okay. What I can find, I can only find it filled out, and that's not.
The most easy thing might be to, that I always would do a memo that basically included everything, and it would include, oh God,
Well, Lynn, actually, if you could have that as homework to find, just because we have such little time left, and I did find the option for public comment. So I'm going to shift to that. But Lynn, if you find it, would you send it to me and I can put it in the packet for continued discussion? Thank you so much. Okay, so there are three elements here, or three additional pieces of evaluation in addition to the town council. First is town staff. The second is boards and committee chairs, and then the third is the public. And so this is where I think where I want to start us in discussion is what information is helpful for the council to have or the town manager to have from each of those entities. What is it that would be beneficial to you as a town councilor to hear from the public when you are looking again at the town manager goals, the charter obligations, and then your qualitative 3 areas of strength, 3 challenges? I think that there's a whole lot we can do to change this process up generally. Right now, it's really just submit written comments by October 31st. Some of the challenges that I see in this process is that this doesn't actually give us enough time to really consider these. If I'm recalling our deadlines correctly, this is not necessarily something that's going to benefit the town council hugely as we look to do our own evaluations. Unless I'm confused about my timelines, but I believe our stuff was due around the same time. So I also generally think that prompting the public and providing some prompts for committee chairs would be helpful. But the first question we as a committee need to answer is, what do we need to know? What information would be helpful to have from members of the public, from boards and committee chairs, and from town staff in order for us to fairly evaluate the town manager on the goals that we have set for him? It's my broad thought into the ether. So I would like you to think about that for the next time we come together in this discussion. What would be helpful for you as a counselor to hear from the public, committee chairs, and town staff? 3 separately. The answers from each of those would likely be different. In order to inform your evaluation of the town manager's performance. Questions on that? Okay. Time has flown, and we're going to move on to our minutes before we leave for the day.
I'm sorry, I'm
oh.
sorry, the minutes aren't finished. The April 28th
Oh, great.
minutes aren't finished, so I'll have 2 sets for you next time.
Problem.
Sorry.
No problem. I'm not going to take a sticker away. You're fine. Okay, so you can have all of them still. All right. I do not have other topics unanticipated. Just as a reminder, Councillor Kenna Martin will be heading up our meeting next week. Councillor Kenna Martin, I will send you a blank version of my GOL report so that you can
2
have
weeks
that.
from now.
2 weeks. Thank you. Do you have any thoughts on what you plan? Are you thinking that you'll go the charter recommendations route? Okay, great.
If you had started anything, I know we talked about having some sort of a tracker or like chart.
Yes.
If you have started something like that, if you could send it, that's great. If not, I can work on something.
I will send that along. Thank you for the reminder. Please, please, please bother me if I don't get it to you in a timely manner.
Okay, no worry. I put a reminder on my calendar, so I can
Thank
make.
you. I have a sticky note on mine, so hopefully I will remember. Okay, so Councillor Kendall Martin will be heading up our meeting in 2 weeks. And other than that, I don't have any other unanticipated business. We will get back to Resident Oversight Board and Town Manager evaluation process following the following GOL meeting. And we'll go from there. Thank you all so much for the good work. I know we've got some heady topics this go around, so I appreciate everybody diving in and sitting in that brainstormy space. It is 8:30. Do I have a motion to adjourn? George already waved by, so I'm hoping that he's.
I was just exercising. I make
All
a
right.
motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second. Oops, no. Amber is the
Do
second.
not make me choose.
Just
Okay.
Amber's the second.
We'll
That's
get
the
there
like thing.
eventually.
I can see it now. Well,
Yeah.
at the end, Lynn, we had to total up how many motions we each got.
All right, I'm gonna call a vote. Councillor Lord.
Aye.
I'm an aye. Councillor Kendall Martin.
I.
Lynn.
Aye.
Councillor Ryan.
Adios.
Yeah. All right, we are adjourned at 8:31. Have a lovely evening, everyone. Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank
Good
you.
night.